Good morning, Primary 6. Today we are going to talk about the soil. Be ready. Can anyone describe the soil? Super. The soil, it is the loose layer that covers the Earth's crust. Do you know what's meant by loose layer? Loose layer, which means we can separate between its components. And this loose layer, it covers the Earth's crust, which means the surface of the Earth. So the soil, it is the upper layer that covers the surface of the Earth. Do you think that all the soil around the world have the same type? Definitely no. We have three different types of soil, which are sand soil, silt soil, and clay soil. The different types of soil, they have different colors, textures, and different sized particles. Can anyone tell me what are the components of the soil? What does each soil consist of? Super! Each soil consists of minerals, broken rocks, organic materials, living organisms, and water. Can anyone tell me what is the importance of the soil? Think, think more. Super! The soil is very important for all the types of the plants as it gives the plants the nutrients, minerals, water, and air. Also, the soil it's like a home for many living organisms like worms, insects, and bacteria. Each soil consists of inorganic materials and organic materials. Do you know what's meant by inorganic ingredients? Inorganic ingredients means the non-living things that we can find it inside the soil. So can anyone give me any example for any inorganic material that we can find it inside the soil? Super, like air, water, rocks, and minerals. Do you know what's meant by minerals? The minerals, it's like the building unit of the rocks. And minerals like calcium, iron. As we said before, that we can find small particles of rocks inside the soil. But have you ever asked yourself, how can we find these small particles of rocks? How can they be formed? Think, think more. These small particles of rocks are formed due to the weathering, erosion, and deposition processes. Have you ever heard about them before? Let's explain more. If you have huge rock, what happens if there is wind or water hitting this rock? Super! The huge rock will be broken down into smaller pieces. This process is called weathering. After this, do you think that these broken rocks will stay in the same place? No, they will be moved to another place by the effect of the water or the wind. And this process is called erosion. But do you think that the water or the wind can carry these smaller pieces of rocks forever? Definitely no. It has time and the wind or the water will drop them into new place. And this process is called deposition. What about the organic ingredients? Organic ingredients means the living things that we can find it inside the soil. Can anyone give me any example for organic ingredients? The organic ingredients, they come from the remains of dead plants and dead trees, as the decomposers like fungi, bacteria, and earthworms, they start to decompose the dead plants and dead animals and change them into nutrients, which come back again to the soil and make the soil fertile. Can anyone tell me what is the role of the decomposers like bacteria and earthworms in the ecosystem? Think, think more. Super. They are recycling the dead plants and dead animals and decompose its bodies into chemical nutrients like oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide gas. And they are forming material which rich in these nutrients. This material is called humus. Do you think that the amount of the organic ingredients can affect on the properties of the soil? Think, think more. Super. The organic ingredients can affect on the soil appearance, and also it can change the amount of the nutrients inside the soil. Do you think that the particles size can affect on the properties of the soil? Think, think more. Super. Definitely yes. The soil can be affected by the particle size, as it can affect on the appearance of the soil and its texture. Also, it can affect on the ability of the soil to keep water. If we have sandy soil, for example, it contains large particles, so it can't retain much water, as the water can flow fast through it. Also, it can affect on the ability of the soil to grow roots. Look here in these pictures. How many types of soil can you see here? Super. We can see here three different types of soil: sand, silt, and clay. Can anyone tell me what are the differences between the three types of soil? The sandy soil, it is yellow soil. The silt soil, it is gray soil. But the clay one, it is dark black color. What about their particles? The sandy soil, it has large particles and large spaces between its particles. So, do you think that can it retain large amount of water or small amount of water? Super. It can retain, which means hold, small amount of water, as it has large spaces between its particles, so it can't hold water. What about the silt soil? The silt soil, it has medium particles and medium spaces between its particles. So it can hold medium amount of water and medium amount of air. What about the clay soil? The clay soil, it has the smallest particles, so it has smallest spaces between its particles. So, do you think that it can retain large amount of water or small amount of water? Super. It retains large amount of water as the water can't flow easily through it. Do you think that the climate of the environment can affect on the soil? Let's see an example. If we have a humid area, an area which contains high amount of the water vapor, so it contains high amount of rainfall. What happens to the soil when there is large amount of rainfall that falls on it? Think, think more. Super. If we have clay soil and there is large amount of rain that fall on it, so it can wash the nutrients of the soil. It can keep the nutrients away from the soil and push them down. When the nutrients are pushed down, so they are forming hard layer that the roots can't penetrate it. Can anyone tell me what happens if we have clay soil and the climate becomes very dry and hot? Think, think more. Super. The clay soil will be very dry and it forms like a hard layer that the water can't be absorbed on it anymore. What about the savanna forest? Can anyone describe the savanna forest? Super. The savanna forest, it is a grassland habitat. But have you ever asked yourself why we can't find large trees on savanna forest? Super, as it contains sandy soil. And as we said before that the sandy soil can't retain water. And for all the plants they need water to grow. So if they have just little amount of water, so they can't grow. So we find grass only in savanna forest. As the weather is dry, the amount of water is small, and the soil is sandy soil, so it can't hold water. What about the soil in a bog? Do you know what's meant by bog? Bog, which means pond. If we have a clay soil located at the bottom of a bog, super, it will be wet most of the time and it can affect on the temperature of this place. The temperature of this place will be cool. From the animals that live in a bog like frogs. Have you ever heard about the dilipation of the soil? Do you know what's meant by dilipation of the soil? Dilipation of the soil, which means the loss of the vitamins and the minerals which are found inside the soil. But can anyone guess what are the reasons for the dilipation of the soil? Think, think more. The soil can be diluted due to the converting fertile soil into cities, which means if we have soil, we remove all the plants from it and converting it into cities. The overuse of pesticides. Do you know what's meant by pesticides? Pesticides, which means the materials that the farmer uses to kill the insects. If we overuse of the pesticides, it can harm the soil and it can cause the loss of the vitamins and minerals which are found inside it. Also, the overuse of chemical fertilizers that the farmer uses to increase the speed of growing the plants. Also, air and water pollution can cause degradation of the soil. What about the desertification? Have you ever heard about this before? The desertification, it happens when the land becomes infertile due to deforestation, drought, or overgrazing. If you have an area which is fertile and the climate becomes very dry and the weather becomes very hot, this causes to convert this land into infertile land. And also the deforestation. Do you know what's meant by deforestation? Deforestation, which means cutting all the trees which found inside a place. When you cut large amount of trees which found inside the place, so the land become infertile and it causes desertification. What about the overgrazing? Did you hear about it before? It happens when there is large amount of animals which eat all the plants which found inside the soil from the roots. So they can affect on this land as the plants can't grow fast after eating them. If we want to restore the soil again, can anyone guess how can we restore the soil again? Think, think more. Super. We can restore the soil again by adding nutrients to the soil, like crop remains and natural fertilizers. Also, by planting different types of crops during the year. Can anyone tell me what happens if there is unsuitable environmental factors that affect on the plants? Super girl, it produces weak plants and it reduces the amount of the crops and also it spreads plant disease. What about the soil erosion? What are the reasons that can lead to soil erosion? Soil erosion, which means the movement of the soil from its place to another place. There are many factors that can lead to erosion of the soil, like removing the plants. If we remove the plants from the soil, so the soil may be dry and it can be easily separate from each other. So it can be moved easily by the effect of the wind. Also, if we increase the amount of the water inside the soil, the water can carry the soil from its place to another place. The last reason that can cause the soil erosion is the increasing of the incline inclination of the Earth's surface. If we have inclined surface, so it increases the speed of the moving water inside it, so the water can move easily on it and carry more soil from a place to another place. Can anyone tell me how can we reduce the soil erosion? Think, think more. Super. We can reduce the soil erosion by increasing the planted areas and also by digging canals to collect the excess of the water. As we said before, that if the water is collected on the soil, it can move the soil from a place to another. So if we dig canals to collect the excess of the water, this can help to reduce the soil erosion. Also, we can reduce the soil erosion by adding sand to decrease the speed of the moving water on the soil. Can anyone tell me what's meant by habitat? Super. The habitat, it is the place where living organisms live. Can you give me more examples for habitat? Like the desert, the ocean, the grassland, and the rainforest. But what is the importance of the habitat? The habitat is very important for all living organisms as it provides the living organisms with water, food, shelter, and a place to live in. Can anyone tell me what are the reasons for habitat destruction? There are many natural reasons that can cause habitat destruction, like fires, floods, volcanic eruption, destructive earthquakes, disease of living organisms, and shortage of food. Do you think that the natural changes have benefits? Can you explain more? Can anyone guess what are the benefits of volcanic eruption? Think, think more. The volcanic eruption make the soil fertile. What about the forest fire? The forest fire, it can release seeds from closed fruits. What about the disease of the living organisms? Do you think that the disease of living organisms have benefits? Definitely yes, as it keeps the population number suitable and controlled. Do you think that the human activities can affect on the environment? Think, think more. Super. Building houses, building factories to produce goods, and construction of roads, tracks for transportation can affect on the environment. Also, the deforestation, which means cutting a lot of trees to build homes and factories instead of the natural spaces, can affect on the environment. If we destroy the land for mining, making roads and airports can affect on the environment, increasing the amount of the carbon dioxide gas and other gases in the atmosphere due to pollution, which increase the Earth's temperature, can affect on the environment. Do you think that the climate change can affect on the ecosystem? Think, think more. Super. The climate climate change can lead to the extinction of the living organisms. When the human increase the rate of the climate change, so the habitat changes. Many living organisms can't adapt to the new habitat. So, if they cannot adapt to the new habitat, they may die, and this causes extinction. The overpopulation. Overpopulation means too much increase in the number of the living organisms, which lead to shortage of food, water, shelter, and spaces. What are the reasons for overpopulation? Do you think that the overpopulation can happen due to natural changes? Think, think more. When the large predators disappear from an area, so the number of the prey will increase. If the number of the prey increase, so there will be shortage of water, food, and resources for these prey. The lionfish in the Red Sea is the reason for the loss of 79% of the young fish of the native species population. Sometimes humans do the same due to overpopulation, causing shortage in the resources. Can anyone tell me how can we decrease the water pollution? The water pollution can be reduced by keeping green areas, using suitable amount of fertilizers, getting rid of the trash correctly, and controlling air pollution from cars and industry. Preventing pollution is more effective than cleaning up pollution, as healthy soil means healthy ecosystem. Making building materials for human may damage the environment. Do you think that we can use soil to build a suitable home? Scientists use soil to make buildings material. They add chemicals to turn the clay of the soil into glue-like substance to bend the materials together. The glue-like substance is made by chemical change of the soil. The topsoil is used for agriculture, but they use the subsoil which is found under the topsoil. The new substance is used to build sustainable homes instead of traditional bricks. Thank you, Primary 6. See you soon.